Look, I always think it's fair to hear from the person that you're talking about. We'll hear from Pete Buttigieg and hear his clips here as we were talking about not just the disaster that was that bridge collapse, but all of the other items in the transportation and infrastructure system that have failed over the last, I don't know, conveniently, handful of years. And if we're talking about government spending, this is really one of the few places I believe all of us can get behind. Yeah, our bridges should be safe. Yeah, our trains should be safe. Our airplanes certainly should be safe. Good Lord, I'm not a great flyer to begin with, okay? So when you have this news happening, not the most fun for those of us that are nervous flyers.
We should play this bite because this...
Be fair.
This is from Mayor Pete, as he was lovingly called when he was running for president, but now Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. This is when he was addressing the disaster that happened with this bridge in Maryland. Let's play bite 24.
How concerned should Americans be about the bridges that they're traversing every single day in this country?
Well, this is a unique circumstance. I do not know of a bridge that has been constructed to withstand a direct impact from a vessel of this size. What I will say is anytime anything happens to any bridge, we as a country take that and learn from that. This is no ordinary bridge. This is one of the cathedrals of American infrastructure. It has been part of the skyline of this region for longer than many of us have been alive. So the path to normalcy will not be easy. It will not be quick. It will not be inexpensive. But we will rebuild together.
You're paying for it. It's your fault. It is what it is. And of course, the over emotion of this. At the end of the day, sure, is it a big deal? People are probably sad. There are people who are from Baltimore and they're dealing with the sadness of losing a part of their skyline and their history. Sure. Are we having issues here where he says, you know what, this has been part of the skyline for longer than most of us have been alive? Maybe that's a problem.
Right.
Maybe that's something we need to be addressing here as you go across, I don't know, the Golden Gate Bridge thousands of times a day. You go to the Brooklyn Bridge. These have all been there for a very long time.
Right.
Not just before we were born, before our parents were born, most likely. Those bridges and those things were there. You don't see that happening. Look, tragedies happen. I don't want to say that this is an intentional thing or that they knew somehow that if a tanker tapped this bridge, it would fall down. But it should be a wake-up call.
Here's my concern with several of the things that he said in this statement. One, this is a unique circumstance. I do take a little bit of issue with that because if you saw the break video, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you've heard the litany of things we went through earlier, whether it be train derailments or bridges collapsing. We have seen bridges collapse. There was one out of Philadelphia where a part of the interstate system, much newer than many of these bridges, collapsed just due to a fire. And then we saw, obviously, it's been more than 15 years now, Minnesota, we saw a bridge collapse there. Why weren't there wake-up calls? That was under the Obama administration. Why weren't there wake-up calls then to say, we need to be analyzing every bridge in this country and see if, maybe these things aren't withstanding that. Also, to his statement that he doesn't know of a bridge that could withstand an impact like this of a tanker of this size. Well, we have tankers of this size. They pass through these bridges every single day. If you've passed a $2 trillion infrastructure bill, maybe start there. Maybe start there and think, if we've got ships this big that go under every day, if something happens, can we minimize the damage instead of not just a section of the bridge falling down? It looked like dominoes collapsing.
In a half a second, it comes down. I mean, it's unbelievable. And you're right. I don't think the American people really, and I've had to be woken up to this, some of our friends that are in this industry, how much is still being shipped and moved via rivers, via lakes, via rivers, via channels.
Well, Great Lakes.
Great Lakes, yeah.
Great Lakes, yes.
But rivers and our country and how this is all connected, obviously, ocean liners and that kind of thing as well. This is still a big mode of transportation for a lot of things and of delivery. You're not thinking about it because you shouldn't have to think about it, truthfully.
And the
money should be going to make sure we're safe on this. And the last thing American people should be concerned of is this bridge I'm crossing safe. We're dealing with enough here. And the deal we have sort of with the federal government here should be, we pay you X amount of dollars. Those dollars feel ridiculous, but they mainly feel ridiculous when things like this happen. When you go, this is the basic need. The stuff that isn't the basic need, if you're building, termite training facilities in lower Alabama, that's maybe the stuff where we go, okay, that's a problem. That's not really where we should be focused on. Maybe, I don't know, your cathedral to the Midwest or whatever he called it.
Cathedral of American infrastructure.
No one's checking that cathedral, okay? Well, this is like, it's fine. It's a cathedral. It's been there forever. We talk about...
Like Notre Dame, like nothing happened back there. Right, yeah. The cathedrals, they're generally okay.
Yeah, we think about, Will and I were just talking about like even things like the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. You're talking about modern marvels that are now at this point very old.
Yeah.
And by the way, a disaster happens on that. I can't even imagine. You're under the ocean.
Thousands of casualties.
Yes, and you shouldn't have to think about that.
Right.
Obviously, a lot of times when you are doing that, you are thinking about it. Like, wow, that's
the only thing you're thinking of.
This is wild.
If
I'm
you know
under the water.
Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, it goes across the bay.
Miles of underwater.
From Virginia Beach area to the eastern shore of Virginia.
Headed towards
and it
DC,
cuts across the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. And it is part bridge, part tunnel, off and on for, I think, 25, 30 miles.
A long time.
And you are sometimes on a bridge, then you go under the water, and that's how ships can pass over the sections that are tunnel sections to go through, so they didn't have to build too tall of a bridge. The thing moves with the wind because of how it's engineered. It's one of the more terrifying things you can go on. But I hope that our $2.2 trillion are looking at the structural integrity of that bridge today.
It's wild to go on it, but you've also never really questioned it.
Right.
I've never been like, before I do this, is there any other way around? No, because you actually have some trust in your transportation department that you're going to be safe, even if it feels kind of ridiculous. I feel horrible for the victims of this. I don't want to take anything away from this. Multiple people, there are multiple casualties. It could have been a lot worse, if we're being honest. You don't want to take anything away from the people that were lost and their families. But also, if it had happened just a handful of hours later and not in the middle of the night, essentially, you could have had an extreme mass casualty event. And I'm very thankful that did not happen. But it should be a wake-up call to a lot of people. We are in those last few days. We have a holiday coming up. I think you all know that. We have Easter coming up, Good Friday on Friday. So usually we do a big lead up to our final day of the month. Now this is a little different. So we're saying, we really only have a couple days here for this Life and Liberty Drive. And I think they did the math and they're like, when's the next time that one of these would happen? It's not for like another 28 years. So I think we're fine. But for now, this is where we're at. So instead of asking you at the end of the month and to disrupt your Easter plans and all of that and to try to do this last day, big fundraiser we usually do, we're going to ask you a little bit more frequently throughout this week. So right now, I'm going to encourage you. This is it. Our Life and Liberty Drive deadline is just in 3 days, and you can still have your gift doubled at aclj.org.